franktalks.com.
You're listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles. I'm Frank because I have to be. On today's show, we have Dr. Carol Drury. She is the author of the book, Valentine's Day and Other Romantic Occasions. Dr. Carol also does an internet radio program of her own. She is also a life coach and offers counseling services. And today, we're going to learn all about her here on Frank Talks. Welcome to Frank Talks, Dr. Carol.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, let's start off with our first question.
Okay.
Where were you born and everything that happened that led you to becoming a life coach and author?
Oh, my God. You have that much time. I was born in Port Washington, New York. And I guess an important piece of understanding about me is that my parents were both alcoholics, and my grandmother lived with us, and that was my unconditional love. Without her, I probably would have grown up without any connection or affection in my life. So she was very much a part of who I am today. I graduated from high school, like anybody, went on to college, and since my parents were, my father particularly was an immigrant, he was very, very strict, and I was not allowed to do much of anything, or I certainly wasn't allowed to make any decisions. So when I got to college, I made every wrong decision a person could possibly make. And then I realized that I was not capable of taking care of myself. And so I got married like in my junior year because I found somebody just like my father who would take care of me. You can imagine how long that marriage lasted, but I did marry a guy who we graduated from college together. He went into the Marine Corps, became a Marine test pilot, but because he was gone so long, oh, by the way, I had 2 children at that point. Let's see, they were 13 months apart. When the youngest was 3 weeks old, their dad left for Vietnam, and I was living in California with a 3-week-old and a 13-month-old by myself. Didn't know anybody, had no connections, no family, no friends, but we survived. And I think that may have been a turning point because I realized that I could take care of myself and I could take care of these 2 children, and I didn't need anybody to take care of me. And I really began to find my own independence. And then he came back from Vietnam, and we moved around, God knows, I think we moved 10 times in 10 years overall. And then he had a tour in Japan, and once again I realized that I didn't miss him, and I really wasn't looking for him to come home. So it was at that point that I asked for a divorce, and we got a divorce. He was very angry. And back then, women didn't automatically have rights. In fact, in Maryland at that time, women didn't even have 50-50 settlement. Those laws hadn't been passed yet. So he actually got custody of my children. And all I got out of it was I did get half of the proceeds of the house should he sell it. So I was left, when I left, I had nothing, not a thing except the clothes on my back. And I can remember living in a trailer in the middle of winter and no heating oil. and no credit to get it, and no way to get it, and certainly no money to get it. And I've often told other women this. It never once did I think of going back. The relationship was so emotionally abusive, which I failed to include earlier on, that it never entered my mind. And we eventually worked out almost a 50-50 exchange of the children, but he had to win, and he had to take the one thing away from me that he knew would hurt me the most, and of course that was the children. But then, of course, I had always been a party girl, and and in the military we drank a lot. And so once I didn't have to take care of my children full time, I increased my drinking. I was single, I was out, I was in the party scene, and I began to drink more. Not really into drugs, but if it was there, what the heck. I was fairly impulsive. And then I met my current husband, who was in AA at the time. He had been in AA for a year. And at one point I realized that I was not going to be able to keep this man if I continued to drink. And so it was at that point I asked him to take me to an AA meeting, and I quit drinking at that point. And that was, my gosh, 35 years ago, if not longer. And AA gave me a new way of being in the world. It gave me a new sense of who I was, and I could play back on my grandmother, the unconditional love that I'd received from her. So I married him, and we've been married for over 30 years. So did I catch you up? Did I fill that all in for you, Frank?
Wow, you've been through so much. And I have to imagine that the struggles that you encountered with your own addictions, with your own family upbringing, they have to factor in your decision to go to school and get a PhD.
You know, it really didn't at first. My bachelor's was in psychology, and that was by default, because when I transferred to my husband's school, when I married the first time, the only thing I had any credits in was psychology, because if you'll remember, I was partying more than going to school. So, and psychology was easy to me. So, that's what, and of course, anybody who comes from a chaotic, crazy childhood wants to understand it. In fact, a lot of therapists get into therapy because they're trying to understand themselves in the first place. But, so that's actually how I started it. And then I had some odd jobs. I worked in a school for developmentally disabled children. I worked in doing therapy with the schools in a, capacity of children under an IEP, working with the parents, trying to do behavior modification plans, that sort of thing. And then I got a job after I got divorced, because I'd always worked part-time when my kids were little. I was fortunate never to have to work full-time, so I was always there for them. But then I had to get a full-time job, and I got a job as a rehabilitation counselor, and then I became supervisor for the state of Maryland, and I worked for 27 years there. And during that time, I have always been quite and I'm not bragging, it's just a fact, talented stained glass artist, to the point that some of my pieces have gone to Europe, and I have a couple of pieces that went to South Africa. So my pieces were quite elaborate, quite expensive. So my goal was to, when I retired, was to do stained glass full time. I mean, my entire basement, which is quite large, just had rack after rack after rack of glass, and that was my love. And somewhere along there, I had gotten a master's in human resource development because I didn't want to do counseling. And I'm not sure why. It was just like I knew that wasn't what I wanted, and I can't quite get back there to figure out what was going on with me. I think I was not liking my job, and so I associated that with counseling, but that really wasn't what I was doing. I was pushing paper because I was a supervisor at that point. And I like to train. I like to train people. I like to teach. And I've taught at George Washington, and I've taught at Bowie State, and I've taught at the College of Southern Maryland. So I thought, well, if I take HR, human resource development, then maybe I can be a trainer. I think that was my thinking. But anyway, I have osteoarthritis, so I've had a lot of joints rebuilt. So what happened when cutting glass, I wore out the joint in my right thumb and subsequently the left thumb from pushing glass and lead and that sort of thing. So I had to have both my thumb joints removed, and they were replaced with a piece of tendon. And lo and behold, I couldn't cut glass anymore. And I was devastated. I think that was the only time in my life I can remember that I was truly depressed. It was like somebody had just pulled the rug out from under me. I didn't know what to do with the rest of my life. You know, my dream was gone. And I can remember coming down and just sitting and looking at all the glass and just bawling my eyes out. So I finally went to a therapist, and he became my therapist, my mentor, my clinical supervisor, and now my friend. I mean, he was a turning point in my life, and he was the one who, I guess, saw the potential in me to be a decent therapist and convinced me to go back to school and get my doctorate. And that's what propelled me into it. And boy, I've never, ever regretted it for a second.
Now, you were a little older when you went back for your PhD.
Yeah, I was 55.
Weren't you at all worried going back to school at 55 to do a doctorate degree?
You know, I've always been pretty impulsive, and I've always believed that it's never too late, and you can do whatever you set your mind to do. I mean, of course, I could never be a gymnast. I mean, that would have been unreasonable. But I saw no reason why I couldn't do it. When I got halfway in it, I thought, you know, holy crap, what were you thinking, Carol? But no, it just never, ever entered my mind that I couldn't do it. I knew I'd need to work after I retired, and I couldn't think of anything else I was going to be able to do with a master's degree that would make me happy. So I just did it. I just jumped in with both feet, and I thought, I'll just take it as it comes, and I'll figure out what I need to figure out. And it's kind of how I've always lived my life, sometimes to my detriment, and other times, you know, to my advantage.
You're listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles, and we'll be back right after this.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by The Eye of the Seductress, Volume 1, a workbook for women to learn about the emotional needs of men. This book is designed to teach women how to seduce men into making a commitment. By learning about the emotional needs of men, a woman will learn what makes even the most notorious players, pimps, and high-value men and quality male leaders commit to one particular woman. From the desk of Frank B. Kermit, the seduction relationship expert, this book is also a great resource for men to learn how to judge the value of a woman to know if she is worthy of everything he has to offer. The Eye of the Seductress. Buy this book now at franktalks.com.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test, a man's guide to the emotional needs of women. What would your life be like if you knew exactly what to say and do with women? This book is for the guy that simply wants to learn how to handle women's tests by addressing her emotional needs. By this, you create the type of attraction that will make her see you as the one she was destined to be with. This book will teach you how to get the woman you want and how to keep her. Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test is the Rosetta Stone for men to understand exactly what a woman means when she speaks and how to respond. Is that worth changing your life forever? Buy this book at franktalks.com now.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by The Eye of the Seducer, the Emotional Needs Analysis Workbook Volume 1. This workbook is designed to teach you to use the Frank B. Kermit seduction theories in the real world. It is based on Frank's book, Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test. What you're going to buy is the program developed by Frank as the head administrator of the Toronto Seduction Lair, specifically designed for newbies that want to learn relationship skills with women in the shortest time possible. These emotional needs analysis drills will skyrocket your success with women. This book teaches men how to think on their feet, not what to think. Never be stuck for something to say or do again. Finally, love will make sense, and you'll learn the skills to see through the games of others. Know what you did right, know what you did wrong, and what to do next. Buy this workbook now at franktalks.com.
You're listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles. I'm Frank because I have to be. On today's show, we're talking with Dr. Carol Drury, who is the author of Valentine's Day and Other Romantic Occasions. Let's talk about your book, Carol.
Okay. It started out as a list that I kept adding to, that I would send to all the males that I was working with, or the husbands of the women I was seeing in therapy. And it started out, use one of these ideas. Do not, in capital letters, go to the grocery store and buy a bunch of roses on your way home from work on Valentine's Day. And it had developed into, 10 pages almost of ideas. And I'd email it to everybody the beginning of February. And so one day, a year or so ago, I thought, why am I giving this away? This could perhaps be something that other people would be interested in, because I think women particularly have huge expectations for Valentine's Day, and men don't seem to get it. I mean, some do, but a lot of men go for the traditional candy or roses. And the bottom line of the title is do it big, do it right. And they could make a dozen roses spectacular by buying a yard of purple satin ribbon at the craft store and just tying the roses with this enormous purple ribbon. So a grocery store bouquet becomes a amazing Valentine's Day gift. And then you tie, maybe a charm onto the ribbon. And man, now you're really impressing your lady. So So it's filled with activities that you can do, and it's for men and women too, because women run out of ideas for what they can do for their partners. And I tried to make it so that if you had money, there were ideas. If you had no money, there were ideas. One of my favorite no money ideas is, and some of my students tried it and they said they had so much fun, and yet when I share it with older people, they go, I don't get it. But it is, you fill your bathtub with hot water, warm water, bathtub temperature water, and you empty a big container of hot chocolate into it. And then you float mini marshmallows on top, and then you put candles all around it, and you invite your partner to share a cup of hot cocoa with you. Well, the teenagers just adored it. They thought that was so much fun. Of course, when I told my husband, he said he didn't think he would particularly like that for a Valentine's Day present. And I said, no, I wouldn't think so, but that would be very inexpensive for a young person for Valentine's Day. So, and there are also things for people who are just starting dating, people who are going to be separated on Valentine's Day, people who have been together for 30, 40 years. So there's something in there for everybody. There are activities. There are gifts, long list of gift ideas, and I've tried to be really creative with the gifts, and I've also got a long section of resources where you can get some really unique Valentine's Day themed or just different, fairly inexpensive jewelry that is one of a kind. So, and then I have some thoughts. Then I have some thoughts about, relationships and how important it is to romance and nurture your partner. And that's really what it is. I'm in the process of writing book 2. Which is going to be a little more sophisticated and probably have more gift and resource ideas in it.
Dr. Carol, I have to ask you this question.
Uh-huh.
What is it about romance that is so important to have it in a relationship?
We all want to feel special. There's not a person around who doesn't want to feel that somebody thinks they're special. And I think romance is what tells us that someone thinks we're special. They went out of their way to do something that would make us happy. And it can be a little thing. You go to the grocery store and you buy a pack of gum that's your partner's favorite brand, and you stick it in a little dollar store bag, and you bring it home, and you give it to your partner. You know, it took a little bit extra effort, and now your partner smiles, and you've just made a happier day for them. So it doesn't have to be big gestures like flying them off to, Venice for the weekend. A little pack of gum can say, I love you, and I think you're special.
So if you had to define romance in one sentence, what would that definition of romance be?
Let me see. In one sentence. I love you, and I think you're special.
I love you, and I think you're special.
Mm-hmm.
The Dr. Carol definition of romance. That actually would make a pretty good title for a future book of yours.
Yeah, it would. I do a lot of that with my couples. I have something I call the gift list. It's the first assignment I give everybody. And I have them each make a list of the things their partner did to them, for them, and with them when they were first dating. And then anything their partner did is doing right now that makes them feel loved, cherished, special. They have to be specific things, something I could see if I was a fly on the wall. And then to that, anything in their wildest imaginations, physical, emotional, sexual, cost, no cost, that they can imagine they would like their partner to do that would make them feel loved and special, goes on that list. And then the partners exchange lists. If there's anything on their partner's list they don't want to do right now because wherever the relationship might be, it might be very chaotic, they can draw a line through that particular one. And because this is a list that they should continue for the rest of their relationship, the rest of their lives together, they then agree to give each other a minimum of 3 things off that list every single day. So you need a long list. You need little things. You need big things. And you don't earn them. So if your partner is grumpy and irritable, they still get their 3 gifts. Now, they may not get the big gifts, but they may get, a kiss on the cheek. You may give them their coffee in the morning, and you may pat them on the butt when you walk through the kitchen. But they still get their 3 gifts. And if you continue this throughout your relationship, you'll know that at least 6 times a day, you will connect in a positive way with your partner. Hard to lose the relationship when that's going on. It keeps the romance in the relationship. And then there's the second and third. I think relationships need surprises. Because relationships need excitement. One of my second favorite homework assignments is to send couples to an amusement park to ride the roller coaster, or if they're really brave, whitewater rafting or jumping off, bungee jumping off a bridge or something. They need to get that adrenaline going together, because our body reacts the same way with fear and with excitement and love. Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
What is the significance about the partner not earning the gift, that even if the partner is treating you badly, that they still get the gift?
Because it's a commitment to the relationship. It's the unconditional love. I mean, we all have bad days. And we all have parts of ourselves that aren't lovable. We accept that in our partner. If it's really something that continues to bother us, then there are ways of addressing it. But I use the Imago model of relationships, and it says that the only way you get your needs met in a relationship is if your partner's needs are met, and vice versa. So, and the only thing you can change is yourself. So, you have to be the best partner you can be at any given time, no matter what your partner's doing. So that you then bring out the best in them. Because if your partner's having a really bad day, and you snap at them or get ugly tit for tat, how is that helping the relationship? How is that helping your partner? How is that helping your partner come out of their bad mood? You need to step up to the plate and be the best partner you can be to help your partner come out of that bad mood. The model works. It's the only model I've ever seen work for an extended, long period of time. It's not a Band-Aid, but it's very hard to do initially.
I have another question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I am really curious about the lists that couples have written for one another in your practice.
Uh-huh.
Are you able to share with me something that may have been on a list that one of the partners said, no way?
It's usually sexual. that they're just not ready to do it right now because of the resentments or the hurts in the relationship. Or it may have something to do with another family member. Like, I'd really like you to come to my mother's when I go over there on Sunday. And there may be a lot of distrust or hard feelings between the mother and the daughter-in-law. And she may say, nope, I'm not ready to do that. So that may be put on hold until later.
Do you recommend that everything that's written on the list eventually must get done?
No.
Okay.
No. Mm-mm. What I try to do is get them to review it every 6 months and add things to it, if there's things crossed off, to see if they're ready to add to them, or if there's something that needs to be added, if they've thought of something new. Because men usually come in with 5 things. I mean, almost every man comes in with some similarity of their 5 things. And women come in with 6 pages. I mean, I keep thinking I'm going to have to make a checklist for men, and it might be easier for them, because they've never even thought. Most men don't even think about what they need.
Mm-hmm, that's true.
They know when they're not getting it, or they're not getting something, but they're usually not sure what it is.
For men, it's the elusive obvious. Emotionally, they'll know when their emotional needs are not being met, but they cannot articulate it. They've never been taught.
Exactly.
I would love to hear what those 5 things are, or at least one or 2 of them.
Okay. And I always get stuck on the 5th one, but of course, it usually has something to do with sex. It has to do with feeding, eating, cooking. It has to do with quiet time. Let me have my quiet time. Don't nag me. And let me have my toy, whatever it is. It may be the remote. It may be the motorcycle. It may be the video games. But that's basically male needs. And if men get those, men are happy. They also need acknowledgement, but they don't usually put that down because they're not aware they need acknowledgement.
I am going to send you a copy of my book, The Eye of the Seductress, because it reflects so much of what you've just said.
Okay, I'd love to read it.
We got to go to another commercial break. When we come back, we're talking with Dr. Carol here on Frank Talks, Pleasures and Lifestyles. We'll be back right after this.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by The Eye of the Seductress, Volume 1, a workbook for women to learn about the emotional needs of men. This book is designed to teach women how to seduce men into making a commitment. By learning about the emotional needs of men, a woman will learn what makes even the most notorious players, pimps, and high-value men and quality male leaders commit to one particular woman. From the desk of Frank B. Kermit, the seduction relationship expert, this book is also a great resource for men to learn how to judge the value of a woman to know if she is worthy of everything he has to offer. The Eye of the Seductress. Buy this book now at franktalks.com.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test, a man's guide to the emotional needs of women. What would your life be like if you knew exactly what to say and do with women? This book is for the guy that simply wants to learn how to handle women's tests by addressing her emotional needs. By this, you create the type of attraction that will make her see you as the one she was destined to be with. This book will teach you how to get the woman you want and how to keep her. Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test is the Rosetta Stone for men to understand exactly what a woman means when she speaks and how to respond. Is that worth changing your life forever? Buy this book at franktalks.com now.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by The Eye of the Seducer, the Emotional Needs Analysis Workbook Volume 1. This workbook is designed to teach you to use the Frank B. Kermit seduction theories in the real world. It is based on Frank's book, Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test. What you're going to buy is the program developed by Frank as the head administrator of the Toronto Seduction Lair, specifically designed for newbies that want to learn relationship skills with women in the shortest time possible. These emotional needs analysis drills will skyrocket your success with women. This book teaches men how to think on their feet, not what to think. Never be stuck for something to say or do again. Finally, love will make sense, and you'll learn the skills to see through the games of others. Know what you did right, know what you did wrong, and what to do next. Buy this workbook now at franktalks.com.
You're listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles. I'm Frank because I have to be. Today we're talking with Dr. Carol. She is the author of a book, Valentine's Day and Other Romantic Occasions. She is also a life coach and a personal counselor, and she's here today to tell us about her life. Welcome back, Dr. Carol.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to go into some traditional Frank Talk questions. Tell me about the pleasures you experience doing your counseling work on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I think it's the clients I work with. I absolutely adore my clients. I can't think of one that I am not glad to see when they come in the door. Occasionally I get somebody who I have a difficult time warming up to initially, but once they open up and we connect, I'm as fond of them as I am the people I connected with initially. I'm basically, my underlying philosophy of therapy is existential, which says if I don't learn as much from my client as they learn from me, then I'm not effective. And I really embrace that because I am always in awe of how some of my clients have handled and survived what they've handled and survived. And I'm much more engaged with my clients than perhaps a lot of traditional therapists might be. That's why sometimes I think I'm closer to a life coach than a therapist. But I do, go back into childhood and those kinds of things. So I'm probably a combination of the two. But the bottom line is, I just love the clients. They make me happy. I like to see them change. I like to be a mentor that encourages them to change what they don't like and create what they want. Pointing out sometimes that, they're self-sabotaging and how to get out of that. I'm a big believer in dream boards, and how you can create what you want, like you are what you think. I really believe in that. So, I'm pretty positive person, and in every crisis there's a gift, and we have to look for the gift, and it's usually there. There's little stress in my job. The most stressful thing for me is getting the paperwork done, which I never have time to do. But I'm trying to hire somebody to do that, but I can't get it together enough to give it to them to do it, but I'm working on that. I think life is too short to be miserable, and people allow themselves to stay in miserable situations. This isn't a dress rehearsal. We're not going to get to come back and do this better the next time. And each day that goes by that people are miserable or allowing themselves to be emotionally abused or physically abused or just not happy in their jobs or their relationships or whatever, or just choosing to be unhappy. I mean, that's not uncommon. I just saddens me. So if I can help somebody turn that around and focus on different things in their life, that just gives me joy. I believe in random acts of kindness and playing it forward. And if I can pass that on, I will do it every time. And I try to get my clients to, give away what you want to get. If you're lonely and you wish you had friends, go out and be a friend, and you'll be surprised how you attract what you give. I think that's what I love most about what I do. My office is in my home, so I just roll downstairs and for the first time I have a salary. I think that's the other thing. I don't take insurance, but I do adjust. I'll never turn anybody away, so I do adjust fees. And so I make a decent living for the first time in my life that I feel is worth what I do. So, of course, that's another pleasure of the job that I do. But I'd probably do it even if I didn't. So I hope that answers your question.
It does indeed. Quick question here. What are some of the sacrifices you've had to make to do this life? What are some of the obstacles you've had to overcome?
Oh, wow. I guess if you could have seen me working on my doctorate, it would have told the whole story. I really had to divorce myself from my husband, not literally, and my family during that entire time. I was working full-time, and I was going to school full-time at night, and I was driving an hour and a half to school. So it was just exhausting. I mean, I couldn't think about it. I would get off work at 4. I would drive an hour and a half to Washington, D.C. I would take my classes, and I would get home about 12:30 or 12 o'clock every night. Then I would get up the next morning and be at work at 7:30, and it just went on for 3 years. And that was really hard. And then on the weekends, I had to study. I had to work on papers. And thank God my husband just sat quietly on the sidelines, and I know he was miserable. And even my parrot divorced me. Parrots bond for life, and my macaw and I were, inseparable. When this was all over, she bit me, and she had bonded with my husband, and she still to this day bites me. They never get divorced, so I guess that tells you that I really wasn't available to anybody during that time. So I think that was a huge sacrifice, not only for me, but for my family. Another sacrifice is I didn't go out of my job with the state on the best of terms. I was overworked, overstressed. I tend to flail at windmills that I can't tame. I was unhappy with the administration, and I chose to take it on, which was ridiculous because you can't win. And I eventually left the state 3 years before 30, which turned out great because it allowed me to start my private practice sooner, and I probably should have left at 25 years because it allowed me to do what I loved. But I had a really good reputation, which I blew at the very end, and so that was sad. And I think it had a lot to do with the stress and strain of, doing school and trying to work and all that. Oh, and I gained, let me see, how many pounds did I gain? I probably gained 35 pounds, which was definitely a negative.
Mm-hmm. I can understand.
Yeah. Which I've lost. But, at the time it was fast food, morning, noon, and night.
If you could go back in time and give your younger self some advice based on everything you've gone through, what advice would you give your younger self?
If you choose the behavior, you choose the consequences. And I wish I'd realized that and been more responsible early on. I think I wasted a lot of time in my life by making poor decisions. And I wish I had gotten perhaps therapy earlier. AA was a great help to me. It helped me learn a new way of being in the world, and I recommend it highly. And the other thing is, I wasn't always as positive as I am now. And so I think I would have told myself to focus on what's right. And then the last thing is, I would have made more girlfriends. At my age now, I realize how precious they are, and I never learned how to make them. And so I'm learning at 67 how to make girlfriends. And at my age, learning something like that is challenging. So I would have learned how to make girlfriends much earlier. But being a loner in an alcoholic family, I learned to be alone and not reach out to people. So that kind of sealed my fate and why I was always kind of kept to myself. But I think that's what I would tell myself. That's the advice I would give myself. And that's what I'd give everybody. A lot of women say, oh, I don't like women. I don't trust them. So I hang out with men. And that may be all well and good, but there'll be a point in your life where you'll wish you had some real, true girlfriends.
Dr. Carol, what is your website? What is your email address, your phone number? How can people find out more about you and your book and your radio show?
Okay. The website is just www.cdrury.com. And there is a blog there, so if you want to communicate with me on that, feel free. My email is also on the website, so but I'll give it to you. It's cdrury@md.metrocast.net. The radio show is Thursdays from 11:30 to 12 or 12:30, depending on how long it goes, but it always starts at 11:30. And that's at thebaynet.com. It's an internet radio show. And then when you get to the Baynet, you click on Baynet Radio, and it'll take you into the radio section of that.
And just for the people listening, your website again and how you spell your last name.
Okay, the website is www.cdrury.com.
Perfect. Dr. Carol, it's been absolutely great having you on the show. I definitely hope that when you write your second book, you'll be coming back to tell us all about it.
I would be thrilled to do that.
You're listening to Frank Talks Pleasures and Lifestyles. Good night, everybody.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by The Eye of the Seductress, Volume 1, a workbook for women to learn about the emotional needs of men. This book is designed to teach women how to seduce men into making a commitment. By learning about the emotional needs of men, a woman will learn what makes even the most notorious players, pimps, and high-value men and quality male leaders commit to one particular woman. From the desk of Frank B. Kermit, the seduction relationship expert, this book is also a great resource for men to learn how to judge the value of a woman to know if she is worthy of everything he has to offer. The Eye of the Seductress. Buy this book now at franktalks.com.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test, a man's guide to the emotional needs of women. What would your life be like if you knew exactly what to say and do with women? This book is for the guy that simply wants to learn how to handle women's tests by addressing her emotional needs. By this, you create the type of attraction that will make her see you as the one she was destined to be with. This book will teach you how to get the woman you want and how to keep her. Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test is the Rosetta Stone for men to understand exactly what a woman means when she speaks and how to respond. Is that worth changing your life forever? Buy this book at franktalks.com now.
Frank Talks is sponsored in part by The Eye of the Seducer, the Emotional Needs Analysis Workbook Volume 1. This workbook is designed to teach you to use the Frank B. Kermit seduction theories in the real world. It is based on Frank's book, Everything Out of Her Mouth is a Test. What you're going to buy is the program developed by Frank as the head administrator of the Toronto Seduction Lair, specifically designed for newbies that want to learn relationship skills with women in the shortest time possible. These emotional needs analysis drills will skyrocket your success with women. This book teaches men how to think on their feet, not what to think. Never be stuck for something to say or do again. Finally, love will make sense, and you'll learn the skills to see through the games of others. Know what you did right, know what you did wrong, and what to do next. Buy this workbook now at franktalks.com.
If you need help with your relationships, my buddy Frank, he's got some tips. Just go to franktalks.com. His advice is better than your mom's. He knows what you're going through, Frank has been there too. So log on to franktalks.com. franktalks.com.
Need help with love, sex, dating, or relationship issues? Help from Frank Kermit, the best-selling author and Canada's most international relationship coach, is only a click away at franktalks.com. What do you do when you feel like a fool? When your heart has been broken again? Pick up the phone or get onto Skype and talk on a private session. Yeah, get a little help from Frank Talks. Whoa, whoa, get by with a little help from Frank Talks. You gotta try a little help from Frank Talks. What do you do when your love goes away? Try coaching one-on-one. How do I sign up to turn things around? Just sign up at franktalks.com. Yeah, get by with help from Frank Talks. rate going around. Oh, it's worth every cent that you will put down. Yeah. Frank Talks. Oh, you got to go to. Get your help from franktalks.com. Yeah, yeah.
Would you believe that Frank gets results?
Yes, we're certain. Just read the reviews.
Frank knows his stuff, and Frank's got the goods.
Good love can soon come to you.